I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today, and not having done this before, I intensely observed the various speakers and presenters that came up here to try to figure out, should I be funny, should I be serious, what should I do? And there was a trend that kind of went through all of them, and I'm just going to stick with that trend, and it seemed to be stay with the lowest common denominator and say something about Patty. So it occurs to me that that's already been done today, so I'm just going to skip right over it. You've had enough. We're going to go right to the program. So today I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker, who is Steve Gohn, the president of CBY Systems. Steve is a graduate of York High and received his BS in business management, business marketing from the University of Pittsburgh. What I find fascinating about Steve, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him for probably about a decade, is this is hometown goodness. We have the pleasure of having so many speakers come before us and tell us these wonderful stories, and I get particularly excited about it when it's one of our own, when it's something here in our own town, and Steve's a perfect example of that. Steve moved away from York not once, but twice, and came back, and I think he's pretty much here to stay. Is that fair? Okay, good. Well, before joining CBY Systems, Steve worked for ITT Financial, Old Stone Management Bank, and then the York Newspaper Company. And while bouncing back and forth between York and Pittsburgh, he eventually was hired by CBY Systems in 2001 as the marketing executive and was shortly promoted to the director of marketing. In a short 5 years, he became the president of CBY Systems, which he remains today. During his time at the helm, Steve has not only grown CBY Systems, but has increased its support in our community through their involvement in a number of organizations, including the United Way, Downtown Inc., the Economic Alliance, the Community Progress Council, and one of the programs that I particularly find very fascinating is speaking to high school seniors about their credit, which I think we can all agree is a pretty important topic. In 2008, Steve was named the Volunteer of the Year by Downtown Inc. and received a key to the city. And Josh George has informed me, who is also a recipient of that apparently the key opens up absolutely nothing, but nonetheless, it's a wonderful honor to have. Gotcha. All right. So in 2015, Steve was named Partner of the Year for the Society of Human Resource Management. And in 2016, CBY Systems was named Small Business of the Year by the YCEA. Most recently, Steve has spearheaded the remodeling and renovation of his business, which is located on Duke Street, catty-corner to the Yorktown, further demonstrating his commitment to the downtown community. As I've said, I've had the pleasure of knowing Steve for over a decade, and I consider him a friend. But I also consider him to be a valuable resource and business asset for myself. We utilized Steve at the county, and I utilized him in private practice. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, I'll introduce Steve Gohn of CBY Systems.
Thank you, Gohn, for keeping that on the up and up. I was expecting a little bit more ribbing from you, but I appreciate that. I appreciate the club selecting CBY Systems to come out and speak today. We are experiencing or celebrating our 90th year in business, and through a recent strategic plan, we found that it's a good time and a good opportunity to explain exactly what credit bureaus in the community do now. It's very different than what we did 90 years ago, and what we're going to be doing moving forward. And at the end, I've even included some educational information for your own personal credit. So with that, we'll get started. Credit bureaus began because business professionals, not unlike yourselves, needed to have a clearinghouse of information in their community to run their businesses better. Typically, who pays their bills, who doesn't pay their bills. So in 1925, the Chamber of Commerce, along with the business community, decided to start the first credit bureau, and they actually call it the Associated Retail Credit Men of York. 2 years later, we had grown so much that we wanted to incorporate, move out of the chamber offices, and became the Credit Bureau of York Incorporated, with Mary Froelich being one of the first two women presidents of the Credit Bureau of York. It was Mary Froelich, followed by John Connolly, followed by Charles Tasco, then Lois Markle, then the club's Michael Ucolano, and then myself. This is a picture, I think it's around the 1950s. Mary Froelich is on the left. Catherine Miller was in charge of what was then called the personnel department, not internal personnel, but the personnel reporting department would do what would later become employment screening. And Ann Yo was the debt collection managers at the time. This is about 1955. We were located in the Schmidt building, and this is the reporting department. The reporting department is basically the employment screening department, and through our recent renovation, I believe this table right over here is still in our basement, and we'll hold on to that for keepsakes, but we're using that still, but everything else has been totally remodeled and brought up to date. So how did the Credit Bureau of York grow from 1927 to today? We actually did through acquisitions. We actually acquired the Credit Bureau of Hanover and the Credit Bureau of Gettysburg. So for a short time of our history, we were actually known as the Credit Bureau of York and Adams County. Later in 2003, we purchased the employment screening and mortgage division of the Credit Bureau of Harrisburg. Credit Bureau of Harrisburg wanted to try and make a go of it, just out doing debt collection and real estate abstracting. The abstracting fell by the wayside, and now they've actually been assumed by another collection agency, so at this point there is no such thing as the Credit Bureau of Harrisburg. There's only a few of us left across the state. However, CBY used our partners in technology to grow us outside the area, at least for the way we could do our searches. We could provide national and international searches by 1995, and then as we grew and had clients throughout the country, we felt the need to change our name to CBY Systems probably in the late 90s. So when you're calling on a client in California and you say you're from the Credit Bureau of York, they hear New York and it's like, no, York, Pennsylvania. Or you say, I'm from the Credit Bureau of York, I don't need credit reports, or I'm not selling credit reports. The CBY Systems moniker seemed to fit and give us an opportunity to grow nationally. But similar to CBY, the other main bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, were all growing as well, and actually became the gold standard of credit bureaus in the area, at least with the lenders. In the early years, TransUnion was considered the bureau of the Northeast. Equifax, being out of Texas, was considered the Southwest, and Experian, being out of Atlanta, was considered down in the Southeast. The bureaus would actually still affiliate with the local bureaus, because the local bureaus was the people who had the relationships with the banks, the car dealers, the retailers, landlords. So they almost used us as field agents, and they would use our information. We owned all the information for York County, and we would actually send, in those days, we would overnight a magnetic tape, almost like a huge cassette tape, to them, so they would then format the credit report and in turn give it back to the credit bureau in that county to sell it to everybody that needed. So it was a symbiotic relationship for the longest time. But by the 2000s, with technology and the internet booming, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax realized they really didn't need field agents out in the field. People could now push a button and send the information up. So they pretty much started going around and buying out some of the credit bureaus, at least buying out their database of information. And Credit Bureau of York sold ours around 2000. And fortunately, we had other products to rely on to stay in business. Other credit bureaus that just simply relied on selling credit reports either went out of business or were acquired and had to find another way to do business. So what does this all mean to you? So if you still walk in the Credit Bureau of York, you can still buy your own personal credit report. You can talk to a friendly face that can help you. But because we don't own all the information, while we can give you a full-blown credit report, if you have a Citibank Visa, we're not going to be able to make changes to that Citibank Visa line. We'll have to refer you to TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. But if you have something local that we're working, then we can still help add, subtract, modify anything that's on your credit report. Because the internet replaced the local bureaus, national service, customer service has gone by the wayside. Trying to email or phone into TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax is a challenge. So you can always still call us, and we can help you as best we can. If you're running into a stonewall with the national bureaus, we're glad to help you. We feel that we're a resource for the community and want to continue to be that till the end of our days. So again, you can still walk in, be assisted by a live person. If we can't give you the answer on the spot, we can at least point you in the right direction with a phone number or an email to get you to the right person. So what has become from credit bureaus are now what are considered consumer reporting agencies. Consumer reporting agency, for all the attorneys in the office, is simply defined as any entity charging fees or dues to regularly engage in the practice of assembling or evaluating consumer credit or other consumer information in order to furnish it to third parties. So we buy and sell credit reports so landlords can make their decision. We buy and sell credit reports so businesses can make their decision. We also do employment screening so HR people can make their decisions. So in essence, every credit bureau is automatically a consumer reporting agency. But every consumer reporting agency is not necessarily a credit bureau. Collection agencies are consumer reporting agencies. Employment background check companies are consumer reporting agencies, and tenant screening companies. If somebody just all they do is tenant screening, they're a consumer reporting agency. So in our world, there's a lot of acronyms. So CRA is a consumer reporting agency. So we are both, and that helps us do all the other things that we do. Because what happened to a lot of the credit bureaus, if they weren't bought out, some went specialized into collections, some specialized into real estate abstracting, some went into employment tenant screening, others just went out of business or were required. CBY Systems, and we find this through our strategic plan and interviewing some of our clients and just the consumers at large, a lot of people really don't know that we do employment screening. Employment screening is the biggest part of our business section. We do this on a national basis. We have clients throughout the country, mostly hospital groups, banks, college consortiums, manufacturers, or even down to small shops that don't have a true HR department, and they call us up and say, I don't know how to do a background check, I only need one, but can you help me? We'll help them as well. It doesn't have to be a volume thing. Our next biggest, which and probably our longest standing service, is debt collections. That's about 30% of our overall revenue. We do that on a little bit more regionalized scale. We have a little bit more leverage locally. We are licensed throughout the Mid-Atlantic from New York, New Jersey, West Virginia, Maryland, and of course Pennsylvania, but we can also collect as the consumers move across the country, but we tend to target our clients to be in the Mid-Atlantic region where we're licensed. Then the final 10% of our business model is tenant screening. So whether you're an investor on your own, you can pull credit to qualify your tenants, or if you're a property management group, we can handle large clients like that to help pull credit on a tenant before you run an apartment to them, so you at least know what you're dealing with before they move in. We can also do business-to-business credit reports, so whether you're a business hiring a vendor and you want to make sure they're up to date, or the vendor's about to do a job for a business, we can have you qualify business, almost like if you consider it Dun & Bradstreet, but much more in depth and much more cost effective because we use the Experian file. Or if you're more on the retail side, a jeweler selling high-end jewelry to a consumer and you want to put them on terms, you can actually pull a personal credit report on them to know whether you want to get cash up front or put them on terms or not deal with them at all. We recently sold our real estate abstracting division, Apple Leaf Abstracting. We sold them to Anchor Abstracting to get out of that. We were actually having a tremendous year with them, so it was actually a proactive decision by our board of directors that we wanted to leave that section, and it was a good time. They were attractive, and somebody wanted them, so we sold those. Lancaster Credit Bureau tends to be more into collections. You probably just reverse the numbers. They're probably 60% collections, 30% employment screening. They only do statewide. They don't do national. The Credit Bureau of Wilkes-Barre is now called United One. They've thrown their hat into the real estate abstracting business and sort of gotten away from all the other services. So again, credit bureaus have sort of gotten pretty specialized. Credit Bureau of Johnstown used to actually use us as a partner for employment screening, so they're a much smaller bureau, only about a staff of 4 or 5 people. So again, they don't have the resources to do all this themselves, so they tend to partner and resell from other bureaus. So in the employment screening world, I could probably ask 10 people what a background check means to them, and I'd probably get 10 answers back based on your industry, based on your experience, based on what you think it is. But the basics are someone usually wants to have a criminal record, but even that can be drilled down into a county criminal record, a statewide criminal record, a national criminal record. Driving records are popular. What's up there is MVR, is a motor vehicle record. We go right through PennDOT. We can also do the education and employment references, so you don't have to use your staff time to sit there and make phone calls and playing phone tag with another HR department to try and get information back. We also verify professional license, drug testing, credit reports. But if you're using a vendor, you want to make sure your vendor's Fair Credit Report Act compliant or FCRA compliant. They're getting the signed release forces up front. They're giving the adverse action letters at the end. Also, you might want to ask if they're using a primary source or a database, CBY, because of our extensive history in the employment screening world. We still are focused on giving primary source, which means going right to the county courthouse or right to the state police, getting you the most up-to-date information, where some of the latecomers to the industry just buy and sell database, cheap, quick, fast. But you got to be careful, because if you're using a database type of background check, if there is a conviction, there's a law that you have to then go back and verify that database conviction with a primary source. It's called FCRA 613. So again, make sure your vendors are aware of that caveat. Then CBY actually specializes in a bunch of more acronyms for you. Act 153 came out in 2015. Anyone dealing with minors needs a state police, state child abuse, and an FBI fingerprint search. We were out in front of that and actually carved out a nice niche with colleges for that. The OIG and MediCheck sanction list are more your medical people. If there's medical people in the room, they'll know exactly what that is. The rest of you probably have no idea what that is, but that can be done as a pre-employment, or there's a regulation where they have to do that on an ongoing monthly basis to make sure someone's not restricted from working in a Medicaid or Medicare type of environment. For our financial clients, we can do security exchange checks, as well as the OFAC search, which came out of the Patriot Act, which is a search for money launderers, drug traffickers, terrorist watch list. Again, someone that you don't want working in the financial industry. So again, do your due diligence, vet your vendors up front. We get vetted all the time with our current vendors, usually on a 3 to 5 year basis. We've been vetted up against the large clients, Hire Right, ADP of the industry, and we hold our own with all the big players in the industry right here from New York, Pennsylvania. And then, as Glenn mentioned, because of our success, we've been recognized as Business of the Year and SHRM's Partner of the Year. On the debt collection side, collection agencies are under extreme scrutiny and regulation right now from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, just to make sure that we're doing things the right way. The industry had been self-policing ourselves. Just like any industries, there's good agencies, there's bad agencies. The good agencies in debt collection want all the bad apples out, the stereotypical calling at the wrong times of the night, calling grandma, yelling at her, threatening her. We don't want those guys representing our company. We feel we provide a valuable source to businesses, returning money back to the community that would go uncollected and possibly drive some small businesses out of business if they weren't using collection agencies. So again, we leverage it in the region. We're licensed throughout the Mid-Atlantic. And then we have taken a stance because of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Anyone that uses auto dialers you may have read in the papers, are usually associated with telemarketers calling you at all times of the night. In the debt collection world, we have to have consent to call a cell phone if we're using an automatic dialer. CBY has made a business decision not to use automatic dialers, so we can call a lot more cell phones and be a lot more successful. So again, old sort of comes full circle, where our old-fashioned ways have now become a differentiator and a benefit for the way we run our business. There's also an industry trend to score accounts for collectability. So if you turn over 100 accounts to your collection agency, they're going to score them and say, well, these top 30% are going to pay, this middle 50% might pay, might not, the bottom 20% are never going to pay, so they're not going to give you a whole lot of effort on those bottom 20%. CBY does not score your accounts. We work every single account that you give us the same way until a human being, a collector, a manager decides that, yeah, this person's really not going to play. They have hardship, anything like that. But we're not going to just automatically let a computer tell us that account's not collected. Then I want to try and give you some information how to monitor your own credit report and some misperceptions in the world. The top one, annualcreditreport.com, came out probably around 2012. The federal government felt that everyone had the right to review their own credit report for free once a year from each of the 3 bureaus. So you can actually get Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion once a year. I wouldn't recommend getting them all at one time. Just maybe, where are we in? We're in September, get TransUnion now, wait till January, get Experian, wait till May, get Equifax, and by the time you come back around to September, you can look at TransUnion again for free. And then you want to look and make sure the creditors are the right creditors, the balances are the right balances, there's no crazy inquiries of someone trying to get credit under your name. And the bottom four there, free credit report, true credit, credit expert, credit commerce, they'll do that for you. Some of them will do it for a fee. You might want to talk to your credit card company. They might be offering free monitoring as well, because what they do is they'll offer you one free credit report if you sign up for their monitoring service. It's a legitimate service, but you might have to pay $15 a year or whatever it is. And they'll call you up and say, hey Steve, I know you live in New York, your card was just swiped in Baltimore, do you know about that? Oh yeah, I was down visiting my daughter at college and I bought her lunch, but hey, thanks for calling. Or, hey Steve, we see your one card wasn't used for a while and now there's $500 worth of charges on there. Well, yeah, I did my Christmas shopping on there. As soon as I get my Christmas bonus, I'm going to pay it off, but thanks for calling. So it's a legitimate service, but you just need to know what you're getting into. Credit Karma's marketing ploy is that they don't charge you, they don't ask for a credit card, and they're pretty much, they're not selling your information directly, but what from I read on the internet, and if it's on the internet it must be true, that they sort of match up your profile with lenders or credit card companies that will then solicit you to try and get a loan, and for every loan that they get, Credit Karma gets paid for that referral. So that's how they're getting away with television commercials and not seeming to charge anything up front. Then another misunderstood product from being a credit bureau is that a lot of people don't understand their credit score. Credit scores come from a totally separate company called Fair Isaac Company. It's abbreviated down to FICO. FICO is the gold standard of what lenders use to make decisions. It ranges from 300 to 850. What most people think is what that big blue piece is, the 35% in the upper left corner there, that have I paid my bills on time? Have I been late? If I've been late, was I late last month? Was I late 7 years ago? Was I late on mortgage? Or was I late just on a small cell phone bill? So it's kind of like your report card. And that's what most people think, that your credit score is a credit rating, when in reality, it's a prediction for the lender to know, if I make a loan to you today, how likely are you to pay me back? 850, you're likely to pay me back. 300, you're probably not likely to pay me back. So then the second biggest piece that goes into determining this is the lower pink section. Another third are the amounts owed. You might say, but I'm paying everybody on time. If you have a brand new mortgage, you have a brand new car, and your credit cards are maxed out, you could still score low, because the score is telling the next lender, hey, don't lend to this person until they get a little bit under control. They're getting a little bit overextended, so we're going to give them a 500 until they get their house in order, and you shouldn't lend to them. So that's the intent behind that. Then the next section is 15%, and that's your length of credit history. An older guy like me, I've paid off a couple cards, I've paid off my student loans, I've been on a mortgage or two. They kind of know how Steve Gohn pays his bills. But Steve Gohn, the 18-year-old, coming out trying to get his first car, his first apartment, we don't know yet. So 18-year-olds score a little bit lower just by nature until you can establish a credit history and a track record for us to base it on. Similarly then, the next section, the 10% in yellow, is new credit. If you go in and buy a car on Friday afternoon and you have a 650, by the next time that new payment hits, your score is probably going to drop to 625, 600, because we want to make sure you can take on that new debt load. So your score is going to go down, so you can make usually about 6 payments in a row on that car, and then you'll come right back up to the 650 that you've always had. So your score is constantly changing based on how much you charge this month, how much you paid off this month. This is also where inquiries come in. A misperception in the industry is that inquiries are the kiss of death and are going to pull your score down by a great amount. Inquiries are only 10% of your account, and the logic behind that is, if you're sitting in my bank asking for a mortgage or a car loan, and I see that you have 5 department store card inquiries from last week, there's no way those inquiries have made it to the credit report yet. So you might have $5,000, $10,000 worth of credit run up that I don't know about. And by the time my first mortgage payment comes due or my first car payment comes due, you're going to be crying to me that, oh, I have all these other credit cards. So recent inquiries are where you've got to worry about to pull your credit report down. The older inquiries get, then they're less concerned, because now we know it should have either hit the credit report or you were denied. So, but again, don't be overly concerned with inquiries pulling your score down. And then the last piece is the types of credit use. They don't want to see someone that has all installment loans and no credit cards. They don't want to see someone with all credit cards and no installment loans. They want to see that you can sort of mix your credit around, be a responsible user of your credit, not get overextended, and do a good job being a responsible person with your credit. This next one's probably hard to see in the back of the room, but it demonstrates the age gap where younger people are the dark blue line on the left. They score in the lower range first, where the light blue are the 60 and above people. Compared to over to the 800 to 850 score, all the 60 and over people have gotten their credit in line over time. They've paid off their mortgages, paid off their cars, but the younger people, 18 to 30, are still trying to struggle with their first car, their first house, their first everything. So it sort of changes their. It's a little bit outdated from a couple years ago, but it still demonstrates the demographic of how your credit increases over time as long as you keep it on track. So in summary, regional credit bureaus do much more than credit. If you're looking for employment screening, you should look to your local credit bureau. Debt collection, we can definitely handle things. Our niche markets are things like municipalities, utilities, medical and dental, even down to manufacturing and business to business. Employment screening, we can help whether you're recruiting from the area or outside the area. There's still a local resource to come get your own personal credit report, or even if you have a personal question, we'll generally field your question. Again, if we can't help you, we can at least point you in the right direction so you're not spinning your wheels and getting frustrated. The national bureaus, while helpful, are a little bit more difficult to contact. Just imagine how many people call them every day. And local bureaus are still resellers for the bureaus, but we don't own the information. So CBY at this point can sell any TransUnion product, any Experian product, any Equifax product, and meet your needs. And then try and monitor your credit on a regular basis. I tell the students I talk to, and I do first-time homebuyers classes that sort of walk in and get surprised at the end. I compare it to taking care of your teeth. You can choose to brush your teeth every day or not brush your teeth every day, but sooner or later, you're probably going to feel a little bit of pain based on that decision. You can choose to take care of your credit every day or not take care of your credit every day, but sooner or later down the line, you're probably going to feel some financial pain from that decision. It's available to you. Monitor it either through your bank or through annualcreditreport.com, or give CBY a call and we can help you out that way in very, very different aspects of your company so you can do things better and have success. So with that, we'll take questions and answers. I was remiss to admit though that we do have a brand new logo. This is actually the first time in public anybody's seeing the logo unless you've been by our building. John Toy, a fellow Rotarian from Fast Signs, has put it up on our building, but this is the first time that our logo is being seen in public, so we appreciate that opportunity. And we'll open up to questions. Sure. Any questions? Back here in the back.
Can companies inquire about your credit without your consent?
The question is, can companies inquire about your credit without your consent? And the simple answer is no. Whether it's for a lending situation, an employment situation, the Fair Credit Reporting Act requires that a consent form or an application or some sort of document has been signed off on, letting the person know that they are being pulled for credit and have some rights. You should also give them what's called the summary of their rights under the FCRA at the same time, so they know what to do after the fact.
And why do I get all these solicitations for loans?
That's different, if we had more time, I do this in another section. The solicitations come from, he asks why he gets solicitations if they need his consent. Those people aren't getting to see your credit report. TransUnion, Experian, Equifax sell lists. Home improvement guy or somebody trying to sell second mortgages or refis will call up TransUnion. They say, I want people in the 17403 zip code with $5,000 worth of credit card debt, no bankruptcies, no 90 days late, a score of 600 or better, and sell me that list. TransUnion will sell that solicitor that list. He has not seen your credit report yet, so that's the caveat. He didn't have to get your permission because he hasn't seen it before. All he does then is call you up on the phone or send you a piece of junk mail saying, hey, wouldn't you like to pay off that $5,000 worth of credit card debt? I can give you an installment loan, save you a whole lot of interest, and doesn't that sound great? Yeah. Well, I need your social security number, your address, your date of birth. Once they do that, they're taking an application. Now, by law, they're supposed to say, would you like to start the application process? But a lot of these people get paid on commission, so they're going to sort of gloss over that just to get you to give them an application. Once they have the application, then they're going to pull your credit report. So if someone starts asking you for all your personal identifiable information, stop it right there and say, it sounds like you're taking an application and I'm not ready to apply yet. Click, but that's when it changes. So they can get, they sort of pre-approve you through the list, but don't need your consent for that. Question down front?
Steve, if you pointed out how the credit score tends to improve with the age of the person as they get more settled. For people who don't need credit, would it be a good idea to put a credit freeze on so that someone can't, steal their identity or something?
The question is, if you're not actively using your credit, is it a good idea to put a credit freeze on your credit report? Credit freezes are usually done in connection with identity theft, but yes, you can be proactive with it as well. For whatever reason you want, they usually last about 90 days. So again, you want to either, if you have the time and inclination to continue to put a freeze on it, they are short-lived. But it is a way for then the lender they'll get an alert on the credit report that this is under freeze, and make sure the person that's in your office, your bank, your car dealership is who they say they are, because Walt Tilley put a freeze on this and he's not intending to get any credit right now. Down front, Glenn.
How are the expungements affecting the background checks? The recent legislation.
What we're looking for is that this Scott Wagner. Glenn has asked about how expungements are affecting background checks. Depending on the type of industry that's ordering them, for example, medical is allowed to see every possible conviction because they're required. Other ones where they're removing them after a certain amount of years, the industry was in favor of a 7-year, letting it drop off after 7 years, because that's typically credit stuff drops off your credit report after 7 years, so why not let the employment stuff drop off after 7 years as well. The EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, actually has a 3-rule test that was out in front of this that says you probably shouldn't consider anything over 7 years unless it's job related, the severity, and has there been any repeat offenses. So again, the industry was already self-monitoring, self-policing itself. So at this point, there hasn't been a whole lot of statistics on how it's affecting us yet, but again, we've already had that in place. But there's a few other up front.
What is the difference, if any, between the FICO score that I can check versus the scores that I think I get from Experian?
The question is, what's the difference between a FICO score and other scores that are out there from the 3 bureaus? The 3 bureaus have tried to come up with their own score called the Vantage score, so you'll see that often. They don't often look at the same criteria from the credit report, so they can be off a little bit. And again, to have the confidence, there's cute commercials out right now where somebody walks into the bank and she puts her feet up on the table knowing that, hey, I have an 800, you better give me my loan. You need to know what the lender is using compared to what you're looking at, because if you have a Vantage score of 700 but your FICO score is only 600, the lender is probably using the FICO score. And the FICO score is so deeply embedded in the process right now, it's going to be hard to get lenders to change their underwriting policies because it's so built around their schools. One last question. We'll go with Phil over here.
For children, minors, for identity theft is happening more with, you don't find out until 18, so they have a longer time to do things. What would you recommend to monitor, how often, and what method for children?
The question is, with minors, there's an increase of identity theft, and what is the recommendation to check minors' credit reports? Unfortunately, typically, and this just happened to a college roommate of mine. He came to my office with his daughter. She went for a loan for college, and the bank told her, hey, there's something weird on your credit report. You better go get that checked out. And of course, it ended up being clear. Typically what happens, an 18-year-old does not have any credit, so it should say no files scored, no records found. You can monitor it, but again, you're going to have to either pay or go online and do it for free. What we see on the flip side of that, the identity theft side of that, is parents, unethical parents will use their children's social security number, because they get them at birth now, where in my day you didn't get it until you start working. They'll use an infant's social security number to get utilities turned back on after they've gone through the process, and we can't get them turned back on. So we have 18-year-olds walking in our office all the time saying, why am I in collections? Because I'm 18 and I've never done anything. And so it's an ongoing problem. I don't know what the solution is. But yeah, if you have the time and effort to plug in, when you use annualcreditreport.com or even changing Experian Equifax, they ask you certain questions like, you bought a car in 1997, what was the monthly payment or what was the sale amount? So again, that child's not going to have answers to that because they have no credit. So it's kind of a catch-22 to be able to pool credit. But you can go into your local credit bureau and pool a minor's report. Usually takes a parent to be there as well. We have it done in 10 minutes, and then usually the good news is you see nothing. But if you see something, then it's an issue. Okay? Thank you so much.